Hello, everyone, and welcome to Good Morning, Good Night, a weekly podcast where we talk about really just whatever comes to mind, whatever is happening currently around the world, usually focused around gaming and esports, as that is where your two hosts come from. My name is William Cho, also known as Chobra, and of course, as always, by my side, or virtually by my side, is Matt Demers on the other side of the mic. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing good. I'm these kind of morning. The part of the reason I like doing this podcast is that it's a reason for me to get up on Tuesdays and stuff like that, like working from home and that kind of junk is something that I usually have a lot of trouble with. So I'm glad that this podcast makes me just like wake up ready, get breakfast, brush my teeth, that kind of stuff. I think I've mentioned this before because I have I have like an actual camera hooked up to my computer as like a webcam, and I'm always like super like I'm always like super like self-conscious. I'm like, oh god, how do my teeth look, how do my hair look, that kind of stuff. So at least it's getting me like all ready for the day at least, and plus it's lovely conversation, and that's a lovely start, or like I said, start to the day.
Oh, that's good, man. Yeah, I'm glad it can serve as a helpful, I guess, aspect to the day-to-day as well.
Yeah, I mean, like we were talking before the podcast went live about like certain projects and stuff that start and die and whatever, and like I think the best projects are the ones that you can kind of integrate into your daily routine. So like, I don't know, I learned very quickly, like when I was starting to do like journalism and stuff, that the more like platforms and stuff that you're a part of, say like Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr and whatever, it gets really annoying to propagate all those different platforms with content if you aren't really into them and you feel that you're like there just to be there. And something I like about this podcast is the way that we've got it kind of set up, where it only takes me about like 15 minutes to edit the final like file that gets uploaded. So it's not one of those things where I have to like sit there and devote like an hour or part of a day in order to get the thing together. So low maintenance, easy execution. That's the good stuff. How are you, dude?
I'm doing okay. Just nothing, no sweeping changes in my life. Just working on the weekly LCK show with T1. This week's episode coming out in about 12 hours. Should be a fun one. We had a little fun with it, so I'm excited to share that when it comes out. But otherwise, just still on the streaming grind. Recently finished Kingdom Hearts 2.
Nice.
Didn't mean to finish it.
Oh, that's the final boss?
Yeah, I'm like totally... Yeah, I was like, I'm not going to finish this today. And then... one domino fell after the other. Then I found myself at the doorsteps of the final boss, and I was like, "Well,
you might
now
as well.
I kind of have to check it out."
You can't you can't just do a stream where it's just like the one final, like the one fight. You might as well.
Yeah, I always have trouble with that with the JRPGs I've been playing, because I want to kind of pace myself, but then. They all have the same pattern where like the story really just kicks into full speed at like right around 70% of the story. So then like you either need to predict it and cut it off before, or you're like kind of screwed because at that point like every part is awkward to stop at, it feels like.
No, totally.
So you just kind of keep going, and then you're done.
Yeah, I kind of had the opposite problem. I was streaming Phoenix Wright. The last case of the first game is like it's like the DS exclusive one, and that's a very long case. And I don't know if I don't know how much to trust like community wikis and stuff, but the wiki says that it's the longest case in the entire series, and I had
wow.
Yeah, I don't know. That could be, like I said, I don't trust the community wiki. It could be that they mean that it's the longest case in the actual, like the game that it's featured in, because for most people, or for people who don't know, it's a visual novel, and basically it has 5 cases in the entire game, like law cases, and then you're acting through them. But yeah, this one is immense, and it's very much. I started a stream being like, I wonder if I can like finish this today. And I'm like, I'm nowhere close. So I think once you've played enough of a certain genre or something, you get it's very easy to intuit like the story beats and stuff like that. And I think I mentioned that about Yakuza last week, where I've played so many of them that certain story beats are just like, oh yeah, I know what's coming. I know why this is here. I know what's coming next, that kind of thing. So
Right.
how was Kingdom Hearts? The funny thing about Kingdom Hearts is that like 2 is the one where in my head, I guess maybe even growing up as it was coming out, I was like, oh that's the one I want to play, because Sora looks more badass or cool than he does in Kingdom Hearts 1, and for some reason I have it in my head that like the RPG system is better or whatever, but I got filtered out by Chain of Memories, so I don't know. How was 2 for you?
No, I would say all those points are true. It's just more fluid. Obviously, for any listeners, it should be noted that I am playing the final mix versions of all these games through the like 1.5, 2.5
collection
remix extravaganza, whatever name
they love their subtitles. They love their subtitles.
Yeah, but so that part of it, I'm sure, plays into that. But like because I'm told like certain aspects, like one of the new, like there was a new form added for the final mix and things like drive form added, like your transformations and things like that. But in general, like the overall system it's just more enticing than 1.
Yeah.
And that worked out because like 1 has the novelty factor of like, oh my gosh, like Final Fantasy and Disney crossover, like that's crazy. So you don't really like, you can't really harp on any of the other systems too much because really you're there for the worlds and the story, right?
Oh yeah,
and then
the novelty of
by
it, like
2, like the story's still great, but the gameplay is actually what really struck home, I think, for me. So it felt good. I mean, the combat itself is just more fluid, and there's more things to work with, so that even if it's not a Devil May Cry, right? Let's put it that way. It's not a Devil May Cry in terms of combat system of like crazy combos and whatnot, but it actually gives you the feel of that without the difficulty and complexity of it, which I thought was really well done. Because at the core, they want it to be this story-based RPG, right? Like that's clearly the goal of it, where you're exploring these different worlds. But then the combat still gives you the satisfaction that you would get from a game like Devil May Cry, where you can like, you start figuring out these small nuances that you can chain together and it just looks badass, but really they're just like single button presses. They're not like crazy combos you need to memorize and remember and whatnot. So I thought it was a very good showcase of like, you can still, like, a game doesn't need to be hard to be badass.
Of course.
Because like the final boss sequence, I thought, so part of the reason I ended up quote unquote accidentally finishing the game in one go in the last bit was like, we were at the final boss and I was like, you know what, like I just kind of want to check it out because we're already here, but like I'm probably gonna die anyway because it's the final boss, so like there won't be a problem because I'll just die and then I'll leave. But then like the first and second phase, I like didn't die and I like had a relatively easy time, and part of it was like they, you know, in other games it could be seen as like these gimmicks, like you start like flying around and like there's all this crazy like anime stuff happening, but it just felt good, but it wasn't difficult, right? It wasn't unnecessarily difficult, but it just felt really epic, and it reminded me of for those people who have played the remake of Final Fantasy VII, the remake has some epic fights as well, where it's just like the giant robots, right? And you have all these cool effects flying around. And it was very similar to that. And it just, again, made me think about how sometimes I think like both devs and audiences together get carried away in that like, oh, it needs to be complex and badass to feel satisfying. Whereas I was literally just like waiting to press reaction commands as single button presses to beat some of these bosses, but it still felt badass because like, you know, the move it executed or the way it was animated was badass. So I was like, that's really cool.
I feel like a bad stereotype of the Kingdom Hearts series is that it's just match X to win. I think that's something that I definitely thought at one point, where, you know, watching gameplay and stuff like that, it's like, I'm just gonna, you know, match the attack. Like, it's gonna be like Dynasty Warriors, where there's no like, feel of stakes. You're just like, okay, I got my one combo. I know it works really well. Maybe I have to position it well to get around a block or something like that. But playing Kingdom Hearts 1, I want to say I left pretty dissatisfied with the actual like experience of the RPG, because I know that I didn't really engage with it a lot. I didn't make a specific build or anything like that. I pretty much just optimized for auto attacking, and the one there's one spell, I don't remember what it's called. I think it's Arrow, in one that's like very broken, where it gives everyone very strong shields, and they're basically reading things. They're just basically like, spam Arrow and you're good. So I think a lot of it was, again, I wanted to get through 1 and get to 2, but it's very rewarding when you're, like you were saying, you're getting to the end of the game and you've spent so much time with that game that you can't, like, you can't avoid that, engaging with that system if you're really into the game, and you've kind of internalized like what works for you in that case. So I don't know, I'm glad you had fun with it. It's always nice to get like sucked into a game like that, and I don't want to say not have it feel like work, but at the same time there are certain games where you're just like, okay, I just want to finish this just to finish this, and like I know what my build does. Let's just clear this boss. Let's tick it off the backlog and that kind of stuff. And no, definitely, I'm glad it was a good thing for you anyway. Like something that really kind of I learned anyway when 3 was coming out is like watching people do like these like extra bosses and like boss rushes and stuff like that, and like those things look really hard and look really unforgiving, and
dude
and I did not see that coming from Kingdom Hearts, because like you said,
it was I finished the game yesterday, and I was like winding down on stream, and I was like, oh, maybe we'll just like check out what's going on, and like I loaded the save file, and there was like this pop-up, and they were like, oh, there's like a new episode, and I was like, what? That's like kind of weird. Like I'm sure there's super bosses. Yeah. So then I went and checked out one of the extra bosses, and like I just got literally insta-killed. Like they had an insta-kill move, and then like they like used it off the get-go, and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then I just logged off.
I think that's an important thing when it comes to the changing of like gaming collection, if that makes sense, where it's always important to remember that with super bosses and extra content and like punishingly hard things, you have to keep in mind that sometimes it's there to elongate what is essentially one purchase that has to last you a very long time. So as a kid I always remember going into a GameStop or an EB Games or whatever it's called in Canada, and I asked them, this was like PS2 era, I was like, I can only afford one game for a while. What should I buy? And they gave me Dynasty Warriors 4, I think, because like that is like you can go, there's so many characters, and there's a decent big campaign, right, and difficulty in leveling up characters and leveling up weapons and leveling up bodyguards and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, cool. That was like my one like purchase for a while. And it had to last me until like Christmas or birthdays, or until I could save up. I don't know. I think I was 15, so I wasn't working, and I was never. In my household, we never really got like allowances or anything like that. So things.
Oh, me neither.
Yeah. So things like video game purchases or whatever that were like, $60, $70, especially the new ones, were Christmas and birthdays, and maybe things like report cards or whatever. Like that was never like an agreed upon standard. So if there was ever something that you can get like a budget game or a used game for like $25 or something like that, that was like scrounging together little bits of, money or gifts or whatever. So a lot of it comes down to longevity, and it's like, I definitely am not the type of person now that, like with Yakuza, when I finished the main story, usually there's another game ahead of it waiting for me. And I don't want to go and do 100% of the mini games and the sub stories and stuff like that. I'm content to just like put that on the shelf and consider that completed. So I don't know. It's I never feel too bad about skipping like super bosses and optional stuff, because I'm like, I beat the story. Emotionally, I am satisfied by this game. The story has like crescendoed. I don't need to go, like, say you end the story at like level 75 or whatever. I don't want to go back and beat like the level 99 boss just
Right.
because
I mean,
because
I
I
think
feel
it's
like I need to.
it's like time trials in certain games, right? It's there for people who want an extra challenge.
Yeah.
And like and especially like you said back in the day, just because, it's a combination of both when you're younger, but also back in the day there were just like not as many games available like all the time, right? Like these days we just have like so many games available all the time across all these different platforms. Whereas back then, like you usually had one console or like a good gaming PC, and that was it. And like big games came like once a year or not, or like once every couple years, right? So it had to tide you over. So it's a combination of both. I'm the same way. Like I have very few games that I've like tried to 100%. I would say Nier Automata is one of them, and then Kingdom Hearts 2 was one where like I'm probably gonna spend the day today after the podcast to like go back and check out a couple more things just because I've enjoyed the game so much. But like most of the other like Final Fantasy and stuff that I played for the first time, if I enjoyed it a lot, I might grind like during my playthrough. But once I finish the final boss, I'm done with it. Like you said, I'm happy. Like I might go back, maybe, a long time later, and I'm just like, I kind of want to revisit. Maybe this is a good opportunity to check out like some of the side stuff. But if I didn't have a chance to get through it in the regular playthrough, I'm also kind of okay with it. I'm not a big achievement hunter. I think there's a lot of value in it, but I think it's the same way as you. Like I usually have just more games waiting for me, whether it's in my library or because of what's coming out. And also just time-wise, right? I'd rather experience something new again. And in the case of Kingdom Hearts, I mean, it's a series, right? So the story keeps going. So I'm pretty anxious to keep it moving.
Yeah, I kind of just had a thought of like, I wonder what happens when like we have kids, or like if we have kids and like they have the same, they never experience that, or they have the experience that we do now where we just have like, a giant Steam library and stuff that you look at and you're just like, I'm never gonna play this ever. I don't know why. I'm looking through my Steam library right now and it's like I have a copy of Midnight Club 2. I don't remember how I got that. I have like, I have Condemned Criminal Origins.
Story.
I'm never gonna play that game. Like
the other day I was looking through my PlayStation library and I was like, man, like I wonder if there are any games that I can just kind of play on my off time. Not something that I would like want to stream, but something I can just enjoy that's like kind of story based. And I was looking through, and apparently I had at some point purchased Control.
Okay.
No idea. And like that's not a small game. You know what I mean? Like that had to have been a very conscious decision. And maybe it was part of the PS Plus, but I don't think so because it's not that old of a game. And I just like saw it in my purchase tab and I was like, what in the world? Like I do want to play it at some point, but it's funny because in my head I kept thinking every time there's a sale, I keep checking if it's like cheap
on sale
to try to get it cheap. But all this time I've like had it on my PlayStation account. So trust me, I'm with you where like, sometimes like a flash sale or something happens, or especially now with like all these ways you can get free or pseudo free games right through subscriptions and things like that. I just have like games lying around left and right, and like I don't know when I'm gonna get to them, or like you said, I'll be surprised too, like scrolling through Steam and I'll be like, oh, like what is this game, like where did I get it from, things like that.
I mean, like I look at things like sorry, hello?
I think
yeah, sorry, 1 second.
I may have lost Matt.
Sorry. All right, can you hear me now?
Oh,
yeah,
I can.
Sorry, I'm dealing with a couple.
No worries.
I'm dealing with some audio issues at the moment, which are.
Oh, that's all right.
Oh no, there you go. Perfect. Yeah, I was dealing with some audio issues in the sense of my OBS was not broadcasting you, so that's fine. It doesn't matter. Yeah, no, that's the side effect of being a tinkerer, the side effect of being like a person that tinkers about these kind of things, you lose, you just run into those issues sometimes.
Yeah, it creates other rabbit holes that you start jumping into, and they all link together at some point.
Exactly.
So it happens. No worries.
Yeah, I was trying to like make you louder in Discord, but don't worry about it. Anyways, my point is that like I don't know. I scroll back and I always have my Steam in that mode where it's like sort by recent activity, where it shows you the like if you play Dota or whatever, and it'll throw Dota to the top of the list. I have like Brothers Tale of Two Sons, which is like a really good game. I've owned that game since 2014. I don't think I've ever played it. You know, like
I just played it.
I saw it. I actually see that on Steam
it.
right now.
Yeah.
I see that on Steam right now where it says July 5th.
It's
Chobra. Apparently it's really good.
Yeah, that one's so I'm with you. Like I got it when it came out because it was like hailed as such a good game, and then I just never got to it. And then some people in chat nominated it as the game to play. Like I have these like BitGoal games, so it got nominated. I played through it. That is it was totally worth playing. And it's like not that long, so it's like a one afternoon if you're like not sure if you want to play a game but not sure and you want to experience a story. That's one for sure.
Yeah, like I think I watched a speed run of it at GDQ before I played it, so I at least have the story.
Okay.
I have the story kind of spoiled for me. That kind of sucks, but that's my fault. I don't know. It's my library is stupid now. I actually went through like a little bit a while ago, and I went to howlongtobeat.com, and they have like a really good backlog system of logging everything and like sorting things into categories of like what are you playing, what's on your backlog, what are you replaying, and like some custom tabs where I put like what's on hold, so like games I'm not like actively playing but I've started, and it's like I've kind of made the definitive list of I want to get through all these games, and it's a good way of like before I make any other purchases, what do I want to like finish first? So
yeah, no, that's good. It's necessary these days for sure.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean,
but,
like, sorry, continue.
Oh no, I was just gonna wrap it up because I know we want to talk about
totally.
something else, because we could go on stuff like this forever, right? Whether it's Steam libraries or RPGs.
A good way of transitioning that is I'm looking at my Steam library right now, and I've got this weird little game called Devolverland Expo in it. See that there's the transition. There's the throw to the main meat of the episode.
Wow.
So I don't know. I put it on Twitter. I was just like, I was feeling lazy, and I was like, you know what? I want to know if anyone else wants to know. Like, I want us to talk about stuff. And like, last week I was actually part of a call to talk about like music and music, like the music industry and gaming and esports. So it was kind of like it wasn't public. It was in like a very self-contained like esports professionals networking group kind of thing, and they brought me in to kind of talk about music stuff and esports. And also on the call was Riot's head of music, and then some other developers and that kind of stuff. And I kind of left that call feeling very like very inspired to speak more to like it kind of get I don't want to say to kind of get back to the original point of this podcast, but like when we started this podcast we really kind of had a lot of ideas in mind in terms about like talking about career stuff or talking about esports stuff. So I don't know, I just threw a thing on my Twitter was like, taking suggestions of what we want to talk on this week's podcast. Julian Carr, Pastry Time, he's a lovely LCS caster. I remember when he was just an OCE caster, and there was the hashtag Where's Pastry Time, because it was announced that he was going to come to North America in like 2014, and then visa issues just kind of like, they were just like, where's Pastry Time? You said he was coming. He just never showed up. But he was just like, I'd say the successful building blocks of building a successful brand. And that's a very wide topic, and we're not going to get into it this week, but I kind of reached out to Will and was like, I kind of want to talk about that through the lens of this cool marketing thing that I saw the other day, where it is Devolver is a video game publisher. I think they're a developer as well. They make their own games. I'm going to just check.
They develop as well, but they're mainly a publisher.
Yeah, so they're based in Austin, Texas, and all I can really say is they have taken they've grown a lot in the last like 2 or 3 years in terms of realizing what they do very uniquely, and why, and like leaning into that super hard, because it's very easy for companies, or just like companies in general, to look at what is successful in their fields and then basically either like copy it or try to hit the same notes and then fail because they don't have a lot of the same resources. So after doing this, like, well, I'll explain what kind of prompted this, but just talking to Will, it was just kind of like, hey, how about we just like talk about, that uniqueness that or companies at least that like lean into stuff really hard, when otherwise like that uniqueness, they might think, okay, it's going to like alienate people, or it's going to like turn, or it's not going to like bring in as much audience as possible. But Devolver, like, they put out so I'm looking at their Wikipedia, and like the first thing that kind of sticks out to me is like they really like to have fictional characters as like corporate executives, and they really like to parody or like satire, or like take things over the limit, so to speak, or like over the conventional. They like to parody things, I guess. They like to have satire of like the very stuffy, like buzzword friendly CEO. And then like I've looked at some of their E3 like conferences, and they're just like, there's gore there, like it's very much there's gore, there's like it's just a ride. It's its own like really like conference on drugs, where you're just like, what's going on? Like, why, how did a company like how did a company agree to this? Or like, why would they risk like coming off as just insane people in order to do this kind of stuff? And so I really recommend you guys look at, or like go to YouTube and look at like Devolver Digital's like 2017, 18, 19. They've got the same actress coming back. Her name's Maria Zook, and she plays a character named Nina Struthers, which is like Chief Synergy Officer, which if you've if you've ever worked in a corporate environment, like it's almost like a bad parody at this point of synergy and making people work together and that kind of stuff. So like they just parody different things like earliest access instead of early access, and loot box coin, which is like a cryptocurrency and loot boxes. So it's pretty much just like the hot button issue of the day, or like of that conference, and then they just kind of run with it. But this year, since there's no conferences and there's no E3 and there's no like, that kind of stuff, they put out a half-hour video game, like a full video game, called Devolverland Expo. And it's a FPS where you're playing a single person who's trying to sneak into essentially an E3 like conference after hours. It's like 3 a.m. or something like that. And the entire grounds of the convention center is like patrolled by robots, and it's kind of stealthy, and it's kind of like I don't know, it's very funny in the sense that you sneak into this con, there's no one there obviously, but you gain progress and move towards completing the game by watching real trailers. You go into a convention like booth like you're used to seeing for like Shadow Warrior 3, and then you stare at a screen, and then it'll pop up a huge like a full screen trailer. And at the end of the trailer, it says like marketing achievement unlocked. You watched 3 of 6 trailers or whatever. And there's like Easter eggs and things to find and stealth sections. And I don't know. It was one of these things where I looked at it and I was like, A, okay, this is what I expect of Devolver. But B, it's like, it's just completely new. It's just completely fresh. And it was something that felt very, it didn't feel cynical. It didn't feel like it didn't feel like I was punished for playing it. I don't want to say punished for playing it, but punished for trying to enjoy it. Because when you're doing the whole like ironic synergy thing, or like ironic corporate speak, there's definitely a risk of going to your audience that you want to engage with it and saying, haha, you're stupid for actually enjoying this. Aren't we smart for like calling out this corporate bullshit? And it's very easy to lean too hard into that, and then you just end up feeling shitty coming out the other end as a consumer or as a person who's engaging with that kind of marketing. But in reality, I go through this whole game and I'm like, I've engaged with all 6 games that they wanted me to. I am very interested now in all these games. I would never have watched the Devolver, Nintendo Direct where they just release a video or something on all this. So this is just like completely unique, and I just thought it was really cool. So I messaged Will and was like, hey, can we talk about this? And I guess you had a chance to play it, Will.
Yeah. I mean, when you first talked about it, and some other people mentioned it as well when it got released, I figured it'd be. I actually wanted to message you about it, but I was off at the studio recording Week of Legends, so I was a little late on that. But I think it's worth talking about just because. Well, like you said, I think the first thing to touch on is, like, I've seen a lot of discussion around people who have either played or watched the game, talking about like, oh, is this like the new future of like marketing in game and like advertisements in game, and our games are gonna now be taken over by like corporate advertisements and things like that. And I don't see it that way. First of all, I mean, that stuff's been happening anyway.
Yes.
Right? Especially in sports games. I mean, the one I remember distinctly is SWAT 4. There was a big deal about SWAT 4 having like real world advertisements in game. Like they had like Pepsi ads, I think, in game. And so that's like a while back. So first of all, that's like already happening. So that's out of the question. But I would say this one was, I think the reason, maybe similarly to what you felt in that you didn't feel bad enjoying it, is like it was pretty, like they were pretty upfront about it, right? I mean, I guess the game description doesn't necessarily say so, but if you like read any article about it, it was like, oh, like this is meant to showcase like their new trailers or like their upcoming trailers. And like it's very straightforward, and it's free, right? They're not like paying. You don't have to buy the game to then.
Oh, I would not have
just
played
like watch
it.
a bunch of trailers.
I would not have played it
exactly.
if I had to
like,
buy it.
No one would play it.
Yeah.
No one would play it if you had to buy it. So, it was free. It's very self-aware and pretty blatant in that it's an advertisement, but at the same time, they added some fun to it, right? And not to mention that this thing was developed in like 2 months, I believe. So it was a very last minute because of the conventions being canceled. There were one of the developers under Devolver Digital were like, hey, let's like have some fun with this, and they gave it a shot, and it worked out. And I think that's totally fine. Like I think it's just a way of, I think it's just within that line of whether it's Devolver or other people, like how presentations have changed from, suits coming on stage and doing keynotes into like fun kind of sketches on stage into, well-crafted like trailers and cinematics. It's just the next thing in line. It's just a new medium, the way I see it. But what I thought was cool was that it captures actually the convention like experience really well without the crowd, which is great because I hate the crowd.
Yes.
Like, as someone who has worked at so many different conventions, right? I've been to Gamescom a couple times. I've been to E3 multiple times. I've been to PAX West a couple times. And, like, when you work at a convention, oftentimes you'll get, like, a pass where you can go to a separate line or go to private testing areas where you can test games without having to wait too long. But even then, like, if I ever hit a window where I have to wait, like, say for 20 people instead of 100, I'm like, you know what? I'll just check it out when the demo comes out. Right?
I'll watch the trailer.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not, like, I don't want to sit here and, like, because even then you're, like, surrounded by all this loud music and all these people, and it's just draining. And so for me, it's, I mean, granted, it's probably also because, I didn't, like, pay to be there. If I'd paid to be there as a fan, then obviously the time is, like, worth it because that's, like, your main experience. But, for me personally, otherwise I'm just like, you know what, I can just like watch the trailers at home, and someday the beta will come out or the demo will come out, and if not, I'll wait for the reviews, and like that's fine for me. Like it's not worth standing amongst like thousands of people.
I am rarely so excited about a video game that I want to stand in line for an hour in order to play it early. And the thing is that like all these experiences and stuff are like usually, or when I say experiences, I mean like the demos and like the booths and stuff like that. It's usually very controlled, and it's usually like, okay, get these people in so we can get them out kind of thing. And so you're playing like 20 minutes, and it's a gimped version, and it's like it's made to be marketing, so you never know how much is going to actually like make it into like the real game kind of thing. But I think something that you mentioned really, I think for both of us who have worked conventions, this was very cool because there was that element of you're seeing things that you're not supposed to, but we've seen those things anyway because we've worked behind the scenes kind of thing. So being able to see, I don't know, it was strangely familiar. Like, and I think that's what is good about it, is that it was familiar in the way of like, it was strangely familiar in the way of just being like, oh man, this was something that I've experienced before or whatever. Sorry, I just got derailed by a Slack message that popped up. But I don't know. It's like, it's one of those things that feels authentic. And for this kind of marketing, like from my experience anyway, that authenticity matters, and people are going to screw that up when they try to copy this. People are going to, oh, sorry. One thing I want to mention before, part of the ease of use of this is that they're using Unreal Engine 4, which I don't think they had to pay for.
Right.
Because Epic is really...
Well, they had to buy like certain assets. I think they even listed,
But that's the thing, right? Is that like the assets were pre-made, so there was a lot of assets, things like things I expected to interact with that I couldn't. So like there's like a water cooler, and there's I remember the one that I was expecting to go up to and press E, like your use key, and be able to interact with was your like a water cooler, and then you couldn't. And I was like, oh, they just bought that asset. So you said that they put this together in like 2 months or whatever. It's like, oh, that makes sense. They got a bunch of assets from the developers in order to craft, you know, these booths and stuff like that.
Right.
And then they just kind of bought the rest of the, you know, maybe they crafted like the expo center and stuff like that. And looking at it, it's hilarious because it looks like the E3 Expo like building, at least from like when I've Googled pictures of it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it almost also reminded me kind of like Animal Crossing, where like I thought of, oh, the person who made this museum installation must have had a lot of fun. And then I thought about this, where there was like, oh yeah, someone who made this expo booth for this game must have had a lot of fun, because they could do things that you can't really do in real life. Like one of the booths has like a slide and like is kind of like built around like a giant like kid bouncy castle like play structure kind of thing. I'm like, you can't do that in real life. You would get sued and people injured and people doing so many dumb things. And it's like, with that in mind, like I said, people are going to try to copy this, and it's going to be really bad because they're not going to understand why this is successful. They're just going to look at it at a face level and say, okay, let's just make a game with the virtual booth. You know, they're not going to understand that. Like, I'm looking at an Easter egg right now, and there's like a stack of books, and one of them along the spine says, no Easter eggs here, move along. And then there's one that says, game design book and history of your mom. And it's like, all right, they understood that gamers were going to go hunting for things that they weren't supposed to see, or they were expecting, gamers would expect to find extra stuff. And it's like, oh, cool. Like they played upon that. They know their audience so well that they were able to put a lot of love and care into it. And like I said, I didn't feel cynical coming out of it. I didn't feel like, oh, the joke is that I'm supposed to submit myself to marketing, so they're going to run that joke into the ground, and they're not actually going to like make me feel rewarded. They're going to say, haha, isn't it stupid that you like willingly went into this in order to get marketed to? Like that's what the cynical like marketing, like, I don't know. I think that's what
I mean. I think that's a little too cynical. Just because, like, I don't think Devolver, like, I don't know if they even meant to, like, I don't know if there was any or intention in being like, necessarily satirical about it. I think they just wanted to recreate it, but then have a little extra fun with it. Like, there are these Easter eggs, but I don't think it's meant to necessarily, like, compared to some of their other stuff, like you mentioned, of the way they present things, or like their made up corporate head of corporate and things like that. Like, those are obviously meant to be like kind of satire and taking jabs, whereas I think this one wasn't necessarily that, right? Because I think if they wanted to do that, you would have actually like had to wait in line and like things like that,
yes.
right? Where
yeah,
but clearly this one was more just a, hey, you can experience it all, and like you can pretend you're actually at a convention, but instead of it just being a walking simulator, they added like these very, very minute, easy like stealth elements and FPS elements, right?
There, yeah, exactly.
You know,
even if you fail,
even someone who isn't playing that game, if someone who isn't really good at that genre can like get by. And worst case, like you can look up a Let's Play, and it's, you know, you're not missing out on too much. So I think, I think that, I don't know if they had that intention, and quite frankly, I don't think anyone else will do that, and here's why. I don't think a lot of publishers are going to actually think it's worth it to develop something like this. I think only certain publishers like Devolver, or in the case of like for instance, I can maybe see like a Sony, right, doing it just because they have so much to work with. But the other thing is you like you said, this was only possible partly because it was done in 2 months with Unreal, but also because it was just done in Unreal, right? But for other people who might have like more control and they're more paranoid about their brand and IP, I just don't think a lot of publishers are going to actually think this is worth it. So I don't know I don't think this is one of those cases where we're going to see too many bad attempts. Where, I mean, they'll definitely happen, right? As it always does, right? Something makes a hit, there will always be bad attempts around it. But I don't know if it will be as bad as, say, to take a easy example, like battle royales, right? Like everybody made a battle royale, and there's only a handful that are good. I don't think it's going to be a case like that, because at the end of the day, this was like you said, it was, you know, it was free, it was marketing, and to try to copy marketing initiatives and convince giant corporations to do it, I think is not an easy job, because it's not as tangible in terms of the reward, right? In terms of the benefits you're getting. So I don't know if there needs to be too much worry. Like, we'll definitely see bad attempts around it. I'm sure we'll see just like straight up low effort attempts at cash grabs of like Convention Simulator and things like that. I'm sure that'll happen, but I think this may open up perhaps some of these bigger groups who have the, you know, resources to make something maybe even better. So things like you said, maybe things where you can interact with more. Like, one thing I thought would have been cool, and something that I was streaming part of it, and then it crashed, so I had to play it through off stream again, because I was like, I'm not starting over from the beginning just for the sake of stream. Of but it would have been cool if you went up to the demo station and then you could actually try the demo like in the game.
That's what I wanted that. I wanted that as well.
Yeah, now that I'm talking about it, it's probably not like worth it from a tech standpoint of like putting in their demo into another engine, like just to play it. Maybe, you know, but even if it's like a like download code or something that can like link to your Steam account, just whatever it is, right? Or it opens
something
up
interactive,
the Steam library and it says
something
like,
more
download.
interactive.
Yeah. And because we're seeing that, for instance, like we've already seen attempts like that with like Steam doing the game festivals, where you can try demos like during those periods, right? We saw it during the Game Awards, we saw it during the Summer Game Festival, over the summer right now. So that's already in the works, even before like conventions were canceled. So bringing those two things together, I think it just opens up that door. But I will say, like you mentioned, what this allows them to do is have more fun with presentation, and things can be more on brand. So I wouldn't be surprised if certain developers kind of championed for more of these attempts from bigger, whether it's publishers or just other groups that they can work together with. Because as I was going through it, I can only think of, like, I can honestly say the Luigi's Mansion 3 booth at Nintendo for E3 last year, and then the Fortnite booth, I think it was, or maybe it was the year before, are the only ones where I would say they were kind of on par with what we saw in this game, Devolverland Expo. So both of those were very giant. They were super on brand, and they had all these activities, and they were as crazy as you could get without taking risks, like you said, in terms of like health and labor laws and things like that. So it was pretty crazy. Like the Luigi's Mansion 3 booth had like secret tiles that if you stepped on them, spiders would come down, like giant spiders would come down from the ceiling. Yeah, but like you had to know where to step. But then they had like mirrors where you could like take these pictures where you know it kind of looks like you're in a deserted mansion. So if you stood in front of the mirror, you'd be like pretty much stepping on the tile. So they had thought all this through, where there were these real life Easter eggs, and you were subliminally guided towards them, and they would happen. I got to get a tour through it, so they kind of explained all of it, so they kind of noted it right away for us. But it was just very cool to see that. And like you said, to now do things like that digitally, it's like that bouncy castle for the Fall Guys in Devolverland Expo. Their Carrion one had like the giant actual alien thing, like just squirming about like on the ceiling. Those are things that can definitely only be done digitally. But now, like the shackles are off, right? You don't have to say, oh, like be super on brand with this crazy Fantasyland game you have, but only with print. Right, like you're not limited with that anymore. Like only just with wallpaper. Like make get it done. Like that doesn't exist anymore. Now it's just like, oh, just make an actual fantasy world in your booth. So that was cool, and I also liked the fact that somehow it didn't feel, because I guess we were already in a game, it wasn't weird to like see that kind of booth, but then also just stand in front of a TV and watch the trailer. Because like sometimes that would feel like a disconnect at certain times, where you're like, ooh, like immersive booth, and then you're like, ah, shoot, it's just a TV with a trailer. But this one was weird, where I guess because maybe this is the part where you mentioned, Matt, maybe it's because we're familiar with conventions and we kind of know how that works. Like there's always going to be that disconnect when you're finally presented with the actual like trailer or whatever they want to market. Maybe it's because I expected it, but it felt pretty smooth. But one last thing I think it did is twofold. Let people know who haven't been to conventions that this is what it's like, so you can enjoy it. But also let people know, conventions aren't like as crazy of a deal anymore, because you can now recreate something that maybe is even more special digitally, right? And without the trouble of like being amongst thousands of people.
I mean, I wonder if we're gonna see like a VR chat-esque multiplayer experience. Because like based like, I mean, like I said, I work in the music industry now. The thing that is on everyone's mind is the virtual concerts from Fortnite and that kind of stuff. I don't know. It's like, I don't know if this is going to be one of those situations where, because it's so new and authentic and there's no like precedent for it, it feels unique. Like a tweet or a marketing campaign that I always go back to, and if you're listening at home and want to know why it's so important, there was a campaign called there's an article on Wired called "How Oreo Won the Marketing Super Bowl with a Timely Blackout Ad on Twitter," and this is back from 2013, so this is relatively old, but this one tweet has influenced marketing over the past decade, which is just like, past 7 years of that decade, but we can steal the show. We can do something unique and authentic in the moment, and we can have a very confident voice. And because of that, we don't have to go through the official channels of needing to buy Super Bowl ad space. We can just make a good tweet that goes viral during the actual event, that takes advantage of the event, doesn't even mention the event. And that's what can get people's like attention, because it's authentic, because it shows that it's paying attention to the moment, and it's because it's crafted with a lot of care. And you can't for the story, 2013 Super Bowl, the power goes out, and Oreo puts out a tweet that says, "No power out, no problem," and has an image that says you can still dunk in the dark, and it's an Oreo that's like radiating a black or white to black gradient. So the Oreo is radiating, and the thing is, you can't plan that ahead of time. You really can't, because you don't know that there's going to be a blackout, So for the person that made it, they have to understand a lot of things. They have to understand, what is Oreo's voice? What is the tone that we want to take with it? Do we want to be snarky? Do you want to make fun of the Super Bowl for losing power? No, you don't want to, because whatever. In their copy and in their design, they do not mention the Super Bowl once, because obviously they can't, because they probably get sued into oblivion if they haven't paid for the license or whatever, because you'll know bars can't say the Super Bowl. They have to say the big game.
Right.
So, they have to know the voice. They have to know the tone. They have to know. They probably, this is the easiest graphic design job ever. You just take an Oreo on a white background, and then you throw a gradient there, and then throw some text on top of it. But you have to move fast. I would love to be able to go back and look at the timing of when the blackout went out, and it says 8:48 is when PM is when they launched it. So you have to have that idea, and you have to be able to execute it. And like we were saying with this, Devolver had to realize in a very short period of time, okay, convention season is dead for the summer, because that's like E3 and PAX and whatever during the summer. And all the smaller regional ones, like I know Canada has Fan Expo in Toronto in August, and it's like, okay, all those are dead. We need to be able to pull together a very unique experience with our voice and all of our partners' cooperation, because we need assets from them in terms of models for like Serious Sam and for Shadow Warrior and all these other ones. We need to be able to build like a custom game. We need to be able to do that all working from home in a reasonable amount of time. We have to record the audio. We have to code literally a boss battle in it. And we have to do it in a way, in a tone that doesn't make the end user feel like garbage. Because like I said, it was very easy to go super cynical with this. And I definitely think that if you're playing a game that Devolver is, in terms of its brand tone and whatever, it's very easy to like go one step too far, and then people feel like garbage, I've definitely engaged with like brands that do the whole corporate parody thing, and it's very easy to take one step too far. So I'm mostly saying that like you can't pull this together with one person. With Oreo, it only takes one person to just be like, okay, that's the line, that's the text, this is the graphic we need, get it out the door, trust me on this, and then that person got super rewarded, because like I said, this campaign and this spur of the moment like improv tweet is probably going to be in advertising textbooks in the future as like a main thing in history, in advertising history, of, oh shit, we can have just the brand talking off the cuff, and not like I said, they didn't have to pay for any Super Bowl ad time, but they got the most noticed ad of that Super Bowl just because they were paying attention to the event that was going on. And I guess it's the same thing with this. You have COVID, you have no conventions, and it only takes them to know their audience so well and have the confidence to say, okay, well, developers, give us a bunch of assets. We've got a developer who can make a cool booth. Like you said, it feels like a real convention booth. So someone had to have that knowledge, They could have made a parody of a really crappy convention that just had a bunch of folding tables and stuff. But no, they actually made stuff that you think you would see in an actual convention. And that kind of design and that kind of expertise in set dressing and all that kind of stuff, that takes knowledge, that takes experience. So they managed to wrangle an entire team together to put this together. And it was very easy for it to not land. And it landed. It's great. I like it. I'm willing to talk.
I will add this. I've seen a lot of comments disliking it. I've seen a lot of talk in the community disliking it. Yeah. So I think I will say this. I think people who have been to and especially worked at conventions will like it. I think it's very hard to not appreciate it if you've been to and worked on them. But for what I've seen is a lot of people who have tried the game who, based on just what I'm reading, perhaps haven't been to or not as many. And they're just seeing this as a game. They're not, I didn't see a lot of like hate for it, but a lot of them are just like, oh, like it crashed, and they're like, well, like whatever, it's just trailers. A lot of people seem to have like given up after the first couple, and they're like, oh, it's just trailers, like I'll just watch it online. People seemed very disappointed that the Easter eggs were really just like these mini cutouts of concept art, right, for their upcoming games, and they were like, oh, like that's it, like whatever. So I don't know if it's as comparable to the Oreo case
you
where
have a
like
point.
actually, like I would say it didn't. I wouldn't say it hit a home run. Maybe it's a single, right? But
Yeah, using a baseball metaphor, they got on base.
yeah, yeah, they got on base, right? So like it wasn't a failure, but I wouldn't say like it was just kind of on par. So all things considered, like you said, it had to be last minute, and it was definitely a risk. Like if you consider that internally, I guess you could call it a moderate success. But I would say externally, I've actually seen quite a few comments where people were just saying, like it's mixed reviews, I guess is the best way to put it. There's no hate for it, but also like how can you hate something that's free and clearly meant to be a marketing exercise? Like they're pretty blatant about it. Like even the fact that it was Unreal Engine, people were like, oh, like the motion blur and the glare and all that. Yeah, like some people were like, oh, I just can't get into it, which is that's fine. But I would also say I think it's more. I don't know if it's as impressive of like how many people it must have taken, because quite frankly, I'm assuming that they obviously had to like transition it digitally, and I'm sure they added a lot more flair, but they must have had several ideas for like how they want to present these things at E3 already, right? Even if not every single game would have had their own booth, like E3. So speaking from experience, when you are preparing to be at E3 to present something, whether it's like a full booth or whatever, like that takes up your planning. Like it should take up your planning from January, if not from like E3 the year before, right? So like I'm assuming that a lot of these ideas were there, but there were probably just like one or a handful of people, like you said, that had the idea of to kick this off, and then it's a matter of getting the people who would have already been planning this stuff within each developer, I think, just to come on board and offer like their assets. But I think it makes sense that it's from Devolver, going off of what you said. At the very least, like at the end of the day, it's a risk, right? Like you said, it could have been a flop. It could have been a bad convention parody. It could have, like, even just like pathing, right, matters. Like when you're at a convention, and both in a real life and virtual convention, like pathing matters a lot, right? Because you don't want to waste your time going from one booth to another. Those are the areas where they added in like these kind of stealth game elements, right? To make it worth your time, and that
kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So you're not just like walking through and walking by a bunch of people and just getting tired. Like you're actually like playing a game. So I think those are the parts where they took a risk, but it was well done and it was cool. But that's also why I, going back to my original point, I don't know if a lot of people will try to copy it, just because you have to see it and realize that and I would argue that it's probably not actually worth it for that many publishers, just a handful.
Yeah, I think that the reason I bring up the Oreo campaign was not so much to say that this was like a big, like, oh, this is going to be taught in textbooks and stuff like that. It's more of, I didn't actually get around to my point in terms of people saw that Oreo campaign and they made very bad not parodies of it, but it's almost like they took the wrong reasoning. They didn't understand why it was successful, and instead of making something that was genuine and authentic and was paying attention to the moment, they just said, oh yeah, we can just like talk as if we're real people, like people, oh, we just like, it's like with Wendy's, when people look at the Wendy's Twitter and they see them snarking at people or throwing shade at McDonald's or whatever. They don't take the right reasons of why that's successful, and they just copy it in a way that ruins the entire concept. So I'm more interested to see if people, I guess like you said, it's probably something that takes a little bit too much resources and commitment in order to just like throw something together. But I'm willing, like I said, it's a single. It's something that you at least give it points for trying, and it's something that gaming is driven on innovation. It needs someone to innovate motion controls or to flop with the Virtual Boy in order for the VR that we have today. So I don't know. I learned a lot from it from a marketing perspective, but it was also interesting, like you said, it just brought back a lot of nostalgia for conventions where I was like, oh, the only way that you can move forward in this game is you have to go through the actual booth. There's no way to like miss a booth, because the way to progress in the game, you can't go to the next set of exhibits until you're in one of the major ones that you need to progress. So I could appreciate that, where if I ever needed to know where to go, where I was lost or whatever, I just went to one of the booths, and then there was an exit there that I couldn't access anywhere else. So I don't know. It took me a half hour to play. So if you're listening to this and you're curious about it and you're worried about the commitment or whatever, it's like a half hour. It's not anything super like difficult. Like we said, there's no huge punishment where, you know, if you get caught in the stealth sections, whatever, it puts you back like 5 seconds of playtime. I think they realized that too, where they were like, we can't make this too video gamey, or people are just going to get frustrated and not actually play it. So I don't know. It's worth your time. It's on Steam. It's interesting to at least think about, as like me and Will are obviously different in the sense that, you know, we can take inspiration from this in different things that we do. But if you're just a consumer and you're playing it, it's at least important to play in order to understand why it's successful and why you might enjoy it. You know, Devolver has a very strong voice, and they're not afraid to exhibit it, and they're clear that they understand a certain section of gaming in general, and they know how to translate that and let you know that they know. So I don't know. It's definitely one of those things where I'm just like, you should play it just to understand why you don't like it, or understand why you do like it, because it'll help you be a better consumer. And if you're an esports professional, it'll help you kind of work better with that authenticity kind of marketing that's really becoming more and more important. Well, where can
it's
people
also just an easy way to it's also just an easy way to experience games that you normally wouldn't, right? Unless you're constantly like scrolling through a bunch of different platforms and YouTube videos. It's all consolidated. Obviously it's all Devolver games, but it's an easy way to consume a bunch of extra news that maybe you weren't aware of, or get exposed to games that maybe you weren't aware of. So in terms of that medium, I think it's worth exploring and potentially getting excited about in the future.
Yes, sir. Will, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch mainly. My ID is Will Chobra, WILLCHOBRA, across both platforms, generally every platform. So I haven't been tweeting too much, you know, just because most of my work is the weekly show and then my stream. So I like to keep it pretty contained within my Discord server, which you can find both on my Twitter and Twitch page. In terms of streaming, I stream 5 to 6 days a week. In the evenings based in Korea, and then kind of going through overnight, usually streaming JRPGs, currently, as we talked about, working on Kingdom Hearts. And then in between each like big installment, you'll find me playing nominated games from the community. So we've got, you know, a couple fun games that are getting nominated here and there. Like recently I got to play Metal Gear Solid and Brothers, like we talked about. So you can find me experiencing these, you know, big story games usually for the first time. Usually I'm going in blind and then sharing that experience with everyone. So if that sounds like it's up your alley, come hang out and chat and enjoy the stream.
Awesome. You can find me at all my relevant links are mattd.cc. That's a URL where it has all my like social and that kind of stuff. I am pretty much winging like streaming for the next little while. I've been enjoying Ace Attorney. I've been playing a little bit of Dota, but not on stream. I'm kind of reinventing myself Dota-wise in what I want to do with the game, so that's something that I'm considering doing a lot more writing about. But yeah, mattdemers.com, mattdemers.com, which is like where I blog and do all my other stuff. You can find the podcast on gmncast.com. We have a subreddit as well, our GMNcast, where we have episode threads for each one of our episodes. If you want to give us some feedback or questions or anything that you want us to talk about, etc., you can check that out there. Yeah, Will, I hope you have a good night.
All right, well, have a good morning, Matt.
Yes, sir. We will see you guys next week.